jumping into the presentation, the end of an era, part two. Hello. My name is Paws, otherwise known as Anna Marie, and I'll have you two introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'm Midnight Lightning, or Midnight around the various digital circles. I'm Brooks in real life, one of the developers on the project.
I am the artist formerly known as Tusk, and I'm just a MoonCat fan recording.
Yes. So, as of today, we are no longer employees, but two of us are still sticking with MoonCats long term. Um, I think there's going to be the first question that pops up immediately of, hey, why did MoonCat Monday's recording time change? And therefore, when it gets posted on YouTube. And the simple answer is MoonCats will now be where Midnight and I commit not work time. Um, and so it has to be during not work time. Um, Midnight has a new job. He's going back to Web 2 starting in mid October. I'm actually not taking a new job immediately because I'm dealing with some medical stuff that's kind of been piling up, including my first surgery on November 1st. So expect this sort of 6 p.m. Central Time to be potentially the new time. Although, as always, if you have suggestions for alternative days and times, drop them in our Discord in the Mooncats Monday channel. That's discord.gg/mooncats for those of you who are watching on YouTube. And so the first thing that we wanted to kind of go over is who is going to have what roles moving forward. And I love Tuss beautiful background image because who's steering the ship? Although I did like that this must be like a UK car because the driver is on the wrong side.
And yeah, doesn't have both of our avatar Mooncats face to the right. That ship.
and mine's like laying down, so I guess you would have had to flip it, and then I would have been a funk cat.
hmm
Absolutely. Why'd you have to face the same direction, guys? Come on.
Sorry. We have laughed about the fact that I ended up picking up a mooncat that was very similar to his as my first mooncat and didn't even realize it because I was looking at mooncats on my phone and to me it just looks straight up purple. And he was like, "Oh, you got a really nice blue mooncat. It looks just like mine." And I'm like, "It's not blue." And we
it's
had some fun discussion about color theory.
indeed. You have those colors right between those optic ranges. Yep.
Well, and I'm partially colorblind, and I'm sure that doesn't help. Chris is shouting partially from the other room. So, as all of you know, Midnight Lightning is now going to be the primary Mooncats project holder, as opposed to Ponderware, the company, being the primary Mooncats project holder, which means he is steering the ship, particularly in areas of technical development and lore. Midnight will not be pulling a salary for work on Mooncats, but he does bear financial obligations, notably taxes, as the primary LLC owner. And in our sort of commitment to nothing up our sleeves, we do have a publicly available wallet address that people can peek their noses into and see what the heck is going in and out of that account. Um, that wallet will have an ENS domain of MoonCatRescue.eth. That will change the 2017 contract, which currently holds the MoonCatRescue.eth address. And we will be talking about how we will subdomain that out in the future. And then, of course, there's me. I will sort of be a secondary MoonCats project holder. Um, if Midnight is steering the ship, I'm on the rudder. A lot of my duties are just going to remain the same. Notably, I'm going to maintain sort of the two-way communications channels we have now. I will bring community requests to Midnight, and I will bring announcements from Midnight to the community. I will also be the person taking over some of the communications channels that Tusk had been handling uh, while he was an employee. So not only am I doing announcements and a lot of the B2B stuff, but I will also be taking back over social media. My social media isn't as cool as Tusk's, and we'll be talking about that later in the presentation. So, contractors, and this is a question that a lot of people have had. It's like, well, if you only have two people and they're not being paid, what about some of the duties that the two of you can't handle? Um, and where financially viable, the MoonCats team will definitely consider hiring contractors. In particular, in the area that the community tells us that we are not fantastic at, which is marketing. And one of the things that we're looking at doing pretty quickly, and we're going to sort of hitch some of the experience off of the condominiums wagon on this, is creating and distributing press releases. Um, but in general, um, these sort of contractors will be one-time project implementation, and realistically, most of the royalties for MoonCats will be largely going towards infrastructure costs. And again, you're going to hear us say this phrase "no trick up our sleeve" quite a bit uh, as we do this presentation today, but we really do want it to be true. And if it's not true, I fully expect and exhort the community to ensure that we are sticking to that sort of pillar of our engagement to the community. Um, there was some sort of questions about um, where the ongoing costs were at the end of the last presentation. And so one of the things that Midnight did in particular, and to give him a very big thank you for his Herculean effort in this, is basically he went over all of MoonCats with a fine-toothed comb. They purred graciously. But basically, we were looking for all sorts of ways that we could minimize these ongoing costs without um, impacting your ability to access and utilize your MoonCats. So things that are being covered at the moment, Heroku and Fire-based deployment environments. And um, Midnight, you said that you were investigating Fleek.
Yes. So right now, the way that a lot of the tools are hosted are on Heroku and Firebase, which are sort of traditional Web 2 deployment methods. They're kind of, if you're more familiar with either Azure or Amazon's services as well, they're kind of in that same tier as a cloud-based deployment structure, which has a monthly cost to it. There are evolving some newer sort of Web 3 based deployment methods. Fleek is one of them that kind of partner goes on top of IPFS as a way to deploy things. And as I hear about others that are more Web 3-ish ways of doing things, we can definitely look into those. As right now, yeah, a lot of the infrastructure costs do go towards hosting the website and making sure it has enough robustness to handle just the amount of visitors that it sees per day.
Other things that are being covered right now, Web 2 and Web 3 domain names. And I want to call out one of the simplest ways to be a community hero. It literally happened during the last MoonCat Monday where someone came along and renewed our Web3 domain. So we will talk about ways that you can support the project in terms of tech and finances and just community building later in the presentation. So know that that is kind of going to be a theme that we're going to be touching upon. Um, but I'm sure there's going to be ongoing conversations about this. Uh, Infura nodes.
Yep, that's a big one of in addition to just the website being up such that when you type in mooncatrescue.com or mooncat.community that you actually see a website, a lot of the Web3 infrastructure then needs to query blockchain data. If you are connected to your MetaMask wallet, those connections can go through your MetaMask wallet, which actually also uses an Infura node usually to connect to. Otherwise, for a lot of the other infrastructure, we need to query blockchain data, and that either involves the infrastructure of running your own Ethereum node or using a public node. Right now, we are using Infura. We do also have Alchemy as a backup sort of RPC infrastructure. And we're looking to do more with caching the data such that we can do less requesting to Infura, since right now the volume of requests that the API server gets in order to keep enumerating what the current view of a MoonCat is for what accessories it's wearing, if anything has updated about that MoonCat. Uh, the amount of requests we get do mean that we have to pay for a much higher tier of Infura for right now. And so continuing to refine how that API server works, of caching the data that can be cached more intelligently, can help pull that down. So that'll be where some development help can be used, but also where a lot of the funds right now are going to, in order to make sure that the data is fresh, and verified off the blockchain. Some of the other services that provide that sort of thing, the graph is a big one that, is trying to organize a different way of querying data, but their method of doing so right now, or and in the past, it has been a free service to be able to query data off of the graph if you've got subgraphs on the graph. But their ecosystem has been working towards having a paid service that queries their, do cost a small amount of their token. So again, still caching the data and making sure to use it as minimally as possible would be smart. Um, and we can continue to investigate that as an option of whether that would be more useful for the project in the future.
Right. Other costs that we're currently covering, email hosting, to remain in communication with both Web 2 and Web 3 partners. I know that there is something of a backlash from the Web 3 community of like, oh, why are you using such a Web 2 way communicating with people who even still uses email anymore? And the answer is you'd be surprised. Um, and just as Brooks and I sort of co-head all of the communications, it is important that both of us have access to it, especially since there's going to be a few weeks next month where I'm just straight up not available. And so being able to access Brooks when I am not around and vice versa is pretty important. Discord boosts. At the moment, we have just squeaked over the line for maintaining rank 3 in Discord boosts, but the Ponderware staff is currently covering 4 of those boosts. We need 15 to maintain our rank 3, and normally I wouldn't care, but the problem is you can only use a vanity URL for your invite if you have that rank 3. And so this is probably where we will need the most immediate assistance, ensuring that we have continuity there. And I will dig into this sort of in a later slide in different ways that you can support the project. Right. Quick revisiting of the video series. We are still expecting the first video to launch this year. Those last touches, the last 10% of the project is always 90% of the work. And that, it turns out, is very true for this video series as well. For those of you who have not heard reference to this video series, it will cover the history of the project, where it has been and where it is going. MoonCats will always be more complex than a modern NFT where you just put a rarity sniper extension on your browser and pick the one that it says is the most rare for the best price point. But we are definitely looking at ways to break down some of those barriers for introduction. And just sort of reiterating this, Midnight will be watching for the impact of that video and will decide on further spends based on how well it performs. Another thing that I wanted to touch upon um, during this presentation is, particularly since we announced that the two companies that were going to be splitting, and that the project did not maintain enough money to keep full-time employees, there has sort of been a sentiment of, well, where did all the money go? And so I definitely wanted to take a minute to go over all of the things that Ponderware and MoonCats accomplished over the last year and a half, starting with the Acclimator wrapper. The Acclimator wrapper moves all of the ERC 20-ish tokens that the 2017 MoonCats exist in to the modern day NFT standard, and that comes with plenty of perks. Customization via the MoonCats boutique. And the thing that I think is really cool and sets us apart from a lot of other projects who are starting to come on board this customization angle, accessories can be created by anyone and not just MoonCat owners. And that piece in and of itself still remains basically unique in the NFT world. I don't think I've seen any other projects that allow on chain customizations designed by anybody. And if you have found one, I want to hear about it because I think it's cool. The MoonCats photo booth. You can turn off and on your customizations to create new mix and match looks for your MoonCats. And in fact, we're going to be talking a lot more about the photo booth later in this presentation. Blueprints for MoonCats. These are schematics for spaceships that MoonCats can pilot. And I think the thing that sort of still makes me happy about loot prints is a lot of these loot and loot derivative projects were kind of thrown out into the ether of, well, if people want them to do something, then they can make it themselves. We decided that no, they are going to be baked into the future of MoonCat's development, and we're still committed to that. And in fact, yes, we do still plan to turn the blueprints into real ships, and the purple prints, and the yellow prints, and the green prints. All the colors of the prints. In fact, there were so many accomplishments when I was making this presentation that I actually had to divide it into 3 slides. So, part 2. The MoonCats name service, which is a unique Ethereum name service domain based upon your MoonCats DNA. More and more projects are offering this perk, which makes me really excited to see. I think it's a cool way that you can identify with and as your favorite NFTs. And I want more projects to do this. MoonCat Pop, which is the first official MoonCat derivative. Spokescats can take on a franchise of their own inside the MoonCats ecosystem, promoting their fizzy beverages in any way they see fit. 82 machines are out there, although there's a potential total of 256. MoonCat Purse, or your NFTs owning other NFTs. MoonCat Purse is going to be some of our primary focus in terms of short-term development, and we are going to deep dive into that very shortly. But wait, there's more. At the start of the year, start of 2022, MoonCats moved entirely on chain. No matter what happens with Ponderware, no matter what happens with the MoonCats team, those 25,444 kitties will exist on the blockchain forever. And again, like a lot of these things, the fact that we are seeing more and more projects, creating this as a center post of their ethos makes us very happy because we think it's important and we think other projects should think it's important. And something that we have been working on for all of September is the MoonCats API overhaul. And some of the things that were included in that, and we'll dive into later in the presentation, is the ability to easily see any MoonCat wearing any accessory or set of accessories that they own, head only rendering for sort of a PFP style look of your MoonCat, new accessory related endpoints, which we will jump into later in the presentation, and then API server updates. You want to talk a little bit about that, Midnight?
Sure. That goes hand in hand with the hosting of it, the API overhaul for different options. The ability for developers to be able to work more easily with the data. This is kind of the bullet point for catching the bridge between the Web 2 world and the Web 3 world. That we did create the on-chain contracts, and then allowing developers to have an easy way. The libMoonCat module is a bridge module for both Clojure and JavaScript to be able to get the on-chain data. And the API server is a more centralized way that services can just get the images in a more Web 2 way. So having that sort of bridge for multiple different ways for developers of other projects to get the data, both as a command line utility, as an NPM module, as a website plugin, all these things that other developers and other projects might be using, allows other integrations to happen faster, and see our MoonCats in more places.
Awesome. Going to take a quick break here and see if there are any questions from the audience.
I don't see anyone typing at the moment, so I think that might be good to move on.
So, the next part of the presentation, I want to dive into some of the near term goals that Midnight wants to accomplish and overall just set up people's expectations for what is coming next. Because the thing that we're going to be focusing on, at least for the near future, is not making new things, but instead refining what we've already created. This has sort of been a step that has been a long time coming. Some of it is done now, some of it will be coming. There will be a point in the future where there will be an intermix between refinement and new stuff to create slash do slash participate in. But know that this is a necessary step and it is not as exciting as putting out big shiny new things, but it is definitely um, needed. So, as I talked about earlier in the presentation, we have sort of put ways that the community can contribute in the ongoing MoonCats ecosystem into sort of three broad buckets. And some of these things will fit in more than one bucket, but because I'm trying to get you all thinking about ways that you can contribute to the site that aren't financial and aren't programming, um, these are the ways that you can do so. So, first thing is a little bit more tech based, and it is contributions in terms of the website. Um, the smart contracts are obviously immutable, and the core development is solid. Pat ourselves on the back. Thank you. Thank you. Good job. So now Midnight wants to turn to improving the project presentation and representation. So, do you want to sort of talk a little bit about the GitLab?
Sure. So the smart contracts that the Ponderware team has been working on over the last year have been great, and I think it's been a great process. That while while the funds have been there and while the interest has been there, and while we were able to gather a team and have the developers to be working on these smart contracts, which are the parts that are immutable and must be set in stone once they are deployed, those particular contracts we released the source code for using the etherscan code verification methods. Has been the way that the ponderware team has released the source code for the smart contracts. Now the things that can continue to be refined are the website UIs for a lot of these things. And so we have made the choice to move those towards being open source as well. Some of them are already there at that GitLab group. Others are still needing some refinement as they're moving across. But the goal will be then that broadly across the community, developers can use more open source practices, may fork the repositories, pull the information, and post updates if they wish. At that, then the myself and any other developers who become core maintainers would be able to review and merge in to the live projects. So I've started to create issues that have then also been tagged as good first issues. Um, if you're familiar with working within any sort of a Git version control ecosystem, you should be able to navigate your way around fairly easily. And if you find the issues that are labeled good first issues, those would be good ones to cut your teeth on just seeing what the ecosystem has. And I've started to create the specific repository called dev environment has both the information about how to set up a local development environment for the mooncat ecosystem project, as well as the architecture decision records, the ADRs, which I've started as a more formal way to define the choices that have been made, namely with like which languages are being used, which platforms are being used, which hosts are being used, such that all the other issues and ideas can be tapped back to that master list just to stay organized a bit better. So in general, this should be familiar to people who have worked on open source projects before. And if there are developers specifically who have web skills, who have JavaScript skills, who have React skills specifically, or Vue skills specifically, there's now going to be more opportunities for helping chip away at our backlog of things that we wish to do in a more open manner. Oh yeah, and that final one there in a similar or in using the nomenclature of open source projects on GitLab, they are called merge requests. If you're familiar with GitHub, they're called pull requests. Same idea. Just on GitLab is a open source project itself, which is why I chose that one as a way that's a little bit more open in their ethos of how they're actually running, hosting code repositories. Uh, but the idea of anyone can suggest a change, and then it'll be up to myself to evaluate them. And at this point, now that this is switching to a part-time role for myself, um, setting an expectation of probably weekly, I'll be going through any merge requests that come through, or trying to have a turnaround time of giving some sort of an answer or review within a week for things that come in.
So do bear in mind that we say weekly, and it may not be precisely every 7 days. American Thanksgiving happens, Christmas happens, Anna Marie goes and has surgery. Those things are all going to throw the evaluation off of its course a little bit. So if it has been more than a week, don't panic. It doesn't necessarily mean that you did a bad, but you can always ask us in the Discord, and we'll be happy to just say, we had turkey this week and are still in a coma. Although it's still really weird that you guys have Thanksgiving at like the end of November. Thanksgiving is next week. All right. One of the things that we definitely want to touch upon this evening and is upcoming is at the moment, depending on where you go on the MoonCat community website, you may be asked to log into your wallet again. And that is because at the moment, we do not have a unified wallet ecosystem on the website, but that is coming.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that's the idea of as we've created all of these tools, the methodology that had been used was mainly that we created a web UI for that specific tool. And when that launches, we launched it on its own domain, our own subdomain. That allowed the Ponderware team to do a lot of experimenting with different platforms, different methods of hosting to be able to see what was best. And that was great that we could try a bunch of those things. We've now kind of settled on what works generally the best, and so this idea of now consolidating them all together such that when you connect your wallet, then you are connected once, and that system then remembers uh, across page reloads and across navigating to the different tools, so that we're not constantly needing to say, oh wait, I need to log into my wallet one more time.
And as part of this unification of the wallet ecosystem will be, well, what if I don't have a wallet at all? And the answer to that is we still want to welcome you into the MoonCats ecosystem where it makes sense, which is particularly Purse. Um, so we want to get people who are brand new to crypto. They maybe don't have a MetaMask or a Wallet Connect wallet to still be able to peek into our ecosystem. And of course,
Yep.
this is. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, right now, both the Purse and the Boutique websites, if you don't have MetaMask installed, you can't browse them at all. The Both of those websites, if you have MetaMask but don't have a MoonCat, you are able to browse, and so that's a it welcomes in people who are familiar with the blockchain ecosystem or NFTs in general, but not people who are brand new to crypto in the first place. And so that's the one more step we'd like to make, is to welcome people who this is their first experience, not just with NFTs, but with blockchain technologies in general. It also helps in for search engine optimizations if the Google crawlers can actually get at the data without needing to be running JavaScript and having a wallet connection themselves. Helps there. But that, of course, taps back to if it's not using a MetaMask connection, back to that original idea of it's using then an Infura node to fetch that data, is finding that balance between getting the data ourselves as a host versus using the user's connection, and we'll continue to refine that.
And this is sort of first steps in a larger vision of Purse. And in fact, some of these functions went live today, and we're going to talk about them during the presentation. Um, do you want to talk a little bit more about them?
I think, let's see, if unless we want to bring up a demo right now, I think we can talk more about it when we're ready to
Okay.
demo that.
I think that I inverted two of the slides. So we're going to first talk about the expanded Purse functionality, and then I will show those new endpoints.
Sure.
So really the end goal is for Purse to be sort of a customizable landing page for any MoonCat. And the idea is just because you have NFTs doesn't necessarily mean you are a programmer. Hello, that's me. And I have no way of showcasing my MoonCats now because I'm a derp. Um, and so, we definitely talked about the fact that I'm not the only person in this sort of situation where I want to have a love letter to my MoonCat, but I don't want to program HTML. And how do we get those people to be able to showcase their MoonCats? Um, and so, future plans for this sort of customizable landing page also include a Hype integration. For those of you who are a little bit newer to the MoonCats community, Hype is an on chain lore site that you can write all about your NFTs and it is forever stored on the blockchain. And so the idea will be these sort of lore based entries will be pulled into your purse as you would like. And we have a new photo booth page that I'm going to be showing off very shortly, which is using the new API server.
Mhm. All right, and in the context here of Purse being the focus of where I especially will be focusing on for development and encouraging if there's other developers who want to help chip away at it too, how Purse can be both a gallery for end users of or for Mooncat owners to be able to showcase their Mooncat, but then also as other developers are trying to interact with the Mooncat ecosystem, Purse is serving as an example of a couple of different ways that that can be done. So this new photo booth page uses the API server, the one way to just easily you know, put in a URL and get a graphic of the Mooncat, while the accessories page, which is one other uh, tab within the Mooncat sort of portfolio at the moment, that uses the libmooncat uh, npm module, which pulls the data off from the on-chain data and shows the images in a slightly different way. So it's actually serving as examples of the two different ways to use the two different libraries that can then be examples for other developers as well. So we're using Purse in that way as well to kind of be the live example for how to create applications that interact with Mooncat data.
There is going to be a call to action in early Q1 for additional visuals to more robustly support these expanded purse pages. Please be excited. There will be announcements in the new year regarding what we might need and whether that's a contract position or what's going on there once we have sort of all of the backbone code completed. And so this is available as of now. And so these are sort of some of the landing pages, sort of an early peek at what sort of a landing page might look like. Um, at the moment, you can bookmark sort of these different sub pages inside of your purse now, which is what we talked about a little bit earlier. Um, but yeah, we want you to be able to use your accessories, whether they're verified or not, whether they're a costume or not, whether they're a foreground or a background, etc.
Mm.
And
Yep. So
so,
to expand on that one of this particular page, like 2 weeks ago, the tabs and the sub navigation that are labeled NFTs and accessories, those existed, and previously the on chain and the photo booth ones didn't exist for individual Mooncats. Now, as of today, all four of those are available for every Mooncat. If you go to their rescue ID, you can see those four sub pages for every Mooncat. Um, the on chain tab gives information about directly loaded from the smart contracts and shows the like low level function calls that you need to call in order to get that data. And now the photo booth tab is similar to what the photo booth overall app had been doing, and that app is still available on the community site. Whereas the photo booth app on the community site was only for your Mooncats, and it would show you a way to interact to get the image preview for your Mooncat in a bunch of different ways. This now is you first navigate to any Mooncat, and then you can interact with seeing it in its different accessory configurations. And the one new way to preview it, you can see there on the under the header that's called photo booth. There is the MoonCat appearance, which in this screenshot is set to full body. That's the new feature that allows you to flip that to head only if you wish to see just the MoonCat's head and pick any accessories that you want to be adorning the head or adorning the other space. It kind of looks odd when you just have the head floating and it's a background accessory. But to more easily make a focused image that is just on the MoonCat's head, there is now a nice web UI for interacting with it. You can see below the picture in the lower right, down at the bottom of the screen, gives you the URL of if you want to reference this, here's how you exactly reference this. And it could be pulled from or any service that wants to just pull a live image of the MoonCat as opposed to a download and re-upload can be pointed directly at that URL to keep updated for that particular MoonCat, or just change the identifier to do the same sort of logic for a different MoonCat if you have different sizing parameters and such set.
And notably, this API call will call accessories that are not verified.
Hmm.
Those still won't show up in marketplaces or other sort of areas that we've specifically said, hey, this accessory isn't verified. Um, but we definitely want to acknowledge that, hey, there are accessories that we have not verified, but that are still cool, still part of a MoonCat's identity, still part of the creator's identity. And we wanted to find a happy medium for where those accessories existed and lived and were visible.
Hmm. So yes, as we've been saying, these improvements to the API will be changing of where the different views of the MoonCats will default to, and so this is showing a screenshot of the sites as we as the MoonCat team will be showing how the MoonCats in their best light, hopefully. The image of the MoonCat in the sort of middle right in the sort of green tealish border has been there on the Purse website, and that is always the view of the MoonCat as it originally looks from the original rescue project, and that does remain. And the one of the new additions is in the header showing the MoonCat, and the logic behind that view will be all of the accessories that the current owner has picked that are verified, and that will include costumes. And so if you've picked a full body costume, it will show in that header on the MoonCat Purse page if you wish to direct people there as kind of a brag page to show that one off. But you'll note this one as the example, there is an unverified accessory that it has. And that one, if you go specifically to the photo booth page, you can generate a picture of it with that unverified accessory. But that is the only place on the MoonCat core team pages that will be showing unverified accessories. Would be you need to manually request it in the photo booth, and you could then view it if you wish to.
So we hope Bricked Router is very happy. All right. Other ways that the community can contribute um, is financially, and hang on through the end, and we'll sort of deep dive into this. Superfluid streams. This is sort of, you're more familiar with this than I am, Midnight.
Sure. So this is the idea of obviously the finances have been an issue of why this new era, and the question of if just the royalties are coming in, those come into the team and that go in multiple different directions. And so if you're wishing to support individual areas and show a more focused support for different areas, this team, one of the ways that, or we've seen that the temperature of the market can ebb and flow very dramatically. And so, a way to sort of even that out, one thing that we'd like to try is to use a sort of streaming money service. Superfluid is a app. Or is a platform that is built upon the blockchain. It's built. They now have it on multiple Ethereum style blockchains. It's on mainnet and a few of the L2s. And their idea is instead of just making a contribution to another wallet or saying that you'll give, $10 a month and making one time or one a month payments, more of a Patreon style of where Patreon charges you on the first of the month. Superfluid divides your payment up into how much it should be every single second, and then attributes a portion of your funds to the person you're trying to give it to every second. And so it kind of evens it out, and even is less syncopated and less choppy than even a once a month payment on the first of the month. So this is one we'd like to try as a team to see if that'll help even out our predictions of how much funds we'll have. So this would be donating directly to Paws and myself as a team currently. If that grows more, we could grow the team again. Uh, and so if you like the things that this particular organization team has been doing, that's giving directly to us to continue to do the infrastructure and development as we've been directing. And a few other ways that'll pop up here as other bullets. If you'd like to specifically support other initiatives that we've been doing, if you're wanting to make sure that your gift or your financial giving goes to a specific area, as mentioned, the ENS domains can be renewed by anyone. Obviously, if no one does renew it, we will use our funds to renew them. But you can use them directly to know that's where that's exactly going to if you wish. As I mentioned, Fleek and or the graph as additional things that I've been looking into as possibilities, but they then both require their own tokens in order to pay for it. So then we as the central organizing team would need a supply of those tokens in order to continue to host there. So then if you were to gift us either of those tokens, then that would go towards that hosting, and you would also know that that's where that gift is going towards. The other is that we can, if you wish for us to receive tokens from the NFTX pools, we as a central team will stake and lock them, which can help reduce the circulating supply and give us some profit off of the pool transactions. And they also could be then used in the future for rewards and other purposes that can also help kind of the ecosystem overall.
And don't feel like you have to write all of this down as you're scribbling, frantically scribbling exam notes. We will have a checklist or an easy links list coming on the site. It is just something that we wanted to set up the API stuff first. This was a secondary consideration, and so that checklist isn't there yet, but it will be. And again, we never want people to feel like they are being arm twisted into any sort of financial contributions to the project. There are other ways that you can contribute, and we will talk about some of those now. So, tech wise, ways to help the project.
Sure. So this is more developer focused things, or if you're a little bit more technically savvy. Um, as mentioned, IPFS is one way we've been looking at as a more decentralized hosting environment. There are already some things that are hosted on IPFS that Mooncats have created. A lot of the static metadata and some of the things like the moments graphics, as well as some repositories of data about each of the Mooncats have been put on IPFS, including things like the original parser script from the original project, things that we would like to maintain going into the future. If and a way that you could help maintain that is if you run your own IPFS server or have your own IPFS pinning service subscription, like if you have a Pinata account, adding the Mooncat related uh, CIDs, which is how IPFS items are identified, can help make sure that they are available more broadly. So we can, I will be making a website or a page on the website to list those various identifiers, which would be very helpful if you have an IPFS system to help rebroadcast those. If you're unfamiliar with how IPFS works or are familiar with torrenting, it's the idea of being a seeder of that content. It just helps other people be able to find that content more readily. And even if you aren't a programmer, being able to participate in testing parties, I think we had some great success with the layer two testing idea of creating enough tools that people who are at least technically savvy enough to run a website and know what's going on within their browser can help participate, even if they aren't savvy to the exact smart contracts or JavaScript code going on. So we'll continue to use that model where it's possible to have a testing party system, and the more people that participate, the more uh, nothing up our sleeves sort of proof there is for the various things we're launching. And as mentioned earlier, GitLab, I'll be continuing to try and organize the issues into levels of difficulty. And as we move more things open source, the idea is yes, we would like others to pick off some of those issues of feature requests that have been requested. And if you implement it and implement it in a quality manner, or want to go back and forth with, here's some, the first half of the implementation, I need help getting some of the others, working with together to get those created. Merge requests within GitLab are a great way for that to happen. And on that vein of, if you're feeling like you do know some JavaScript and possibly some React, and are interested in trying some of these things out, I'll be seeing. I still have to figure out how much of my part-time time I will have once my new job starts. But I'd be happy. I'm very interested in doing education, and I enjoy helping other developers get started. So where possible, I'll be able to help with that learning. One of the things that I think could help with that, and is something that I've done in the past that I enjoy as kind of a professional development way to hone my programming skills, is there is a group called the Advent of Code event, which each year they create a sort of coding exercise that there's one programming challenge per day for the entire month of December. Last year, I was unable to do it for being busy with other things, but I'm hoping that this year I'll be able to work through it. And that would be a good opportunity for, if there are other developers wishing to learn and grow and ask questions and see how others are approaching similar problems, we can be going through that together as a group, or using that as a learning opportunity.
All right. Gonna pause real quick and no pun intended and see if there's any questions from the audience in terms of technical or financial community contributions.
Oh, yes. And as people are formulating those questions, just to reiterate, for the financial side, this has been kind of the ongoing discussion we've had of trying to encourage, you know, realizing that we as a team love it when people find their forever MoonCat. And having the team be mostly funded on royalties is encouraging people to, encouraging there to be volume of trades of people moving the MoonCats around. And so it's kind of a catch 22 of, if there's lots of volume of people giving up MoonCats and they're trading to other people, that's not necessarily people finding their forever MoonCat. And so this is looking at possibilities for other ways that we as a team could still move forward, if you're liking the way that these things are developing, that we can keep these maintained, but perhaps not being as dependent on royalties as a specific way for that to come forward.
Right. Community contributions via social media. Um, Easy ways to help support the project: retweets, upvotes, likes, subscribes, all of the things on Twitter, Medium, and YouTube. Um, and comment, reply, engage. It sucks, but we kind of just have to embrace the algorithm for what it is. Um, I feel like this is the place where the community can make a really big impact for minimal time, minimal money, and minimal technical savvy. Anybody can help. We are a huge community. We have like 7,600 unique wallets between the two wrappers and unwrapped mooncats, but we kind of have anemic engagement. For those of you that are in that 5 to 10 core fans, I see you. I see you every day and I love you, but it can't just be you. And my sort of challenge to those of you who are listening to this is, who is going to lead the welcome wagon? Because we look at tools like Sintra and they show we have pretty low engagement, lower than even projects that are smaller than us, that have fewer holders than us. So I definitely want the community to start looking around at the way that other communities engage with, for example, new people that buy into their project. Like, someone buys a sappy seal and they have 150 people arfing at them. And I want us to be that too. And we don't have to arf at them. We can always meow at them. But we definitely need to find uh, a rhythm in welcoming new people into MoonCat ownership. And that is, like I said, the area that, like, anybody can do it and we need it. Other ways you can help contribute to the community in terms of social, scouting out good interaction opportunities for MoonCats. a lot of the times, the best connections we've made in metaverses, games, galleries, and other non whitelist collaborative opportunities have been someone coming to us and said, "Hey, are you familiar with X project?" And that gets the conversation going. Even better if you can introduce us to somebody from that team. All right, now we move on to accessory defaults. So the overhaul is more or less complete at this point. Yes?
So yes, the first phase of the overhaul to get costume accessories classified is complete. That's live. As we mentioned, the API server updates are live as well, and it is now visible in the boutique and purse are now using some of those features. And so now the way that this will start percolating through is now to any ecosystem or any project that's using the MoonCat metadata in its default state will not be seeing costumed accessories. As mentioned, the purse is now set to show costumed accessories. So if you wish to show off your costumes, directing to purse is an easy way to show them in a sort of live environment. Otherwise, downloading something from the photo booth to be able to show it. The costumes that are in this first round that we've flagged as costumes are the ones that, as the community has talked about, might be confusing to a new person to indicate what actually a mooncat is. And so accessories that fully cover a mooncat on their own are the ones that now have been marked as a costume. You'll be able to see that in the boutique. If you browse to the page, it'll now give a notice that is similar to the notice it gives for the unverified accessories to indicate, just to note, this one is now flagged as a costume. And so that'll start to percolate through the gallery sites. But our intent is that in each of the Mooncat related things, they will continue to be visible. And the next phase of this will be making sure to configure World Wide Web to be able to show them. Right now, World Wide Web is using just the default. So there will possibly be a time here where those costumes will disappear in World Wide Web. But the next phase is now to get those visible in World Wide Web and in a more robust manner that works well in that ecosystem.
So I'm specifically calling out these four because I feel like they are the four that get the most amount of conversation around the fact that they cover up the entire Mooncat, the Pikachu, the cow, the dog, the chicken. Um, that list is not exhaustive. Um, the other thing that we are looking at is currently costumes that do not cover a Mooncat's face remains. Notably, since it comes up in conversation in Discord a lot, that includes the spider and the sheep, but again, that is not exhaustive. Um, this is something that is kind of going to be a living, ongoing process. And we will review again how sentiment is surrounding accessories at the start of 2023. Um, which means that, as Midnight noted, the default image generic marketplaces and portfolio tools will no longer include these costumes, and that includes metaverses as well for now. Um, Purse imagery will show as the owner specifies, unless the visitor or viewer elects otherwise. And again, that's part of the all right, I want to see the Mooncat with its accessories on. I want to look at that box where the accessories are completely off. Um, so there is going to be an off-chain classification of background and scenery accessories. This has sort of been a request for World Wide Web for a while, and we are definitely planning to tackle it. And so know that there are more changes coming in terms of accessories. Any questions about costumes or backgrounds before I move on?
And as people are formulating questions there, to note the costume flag right now is off chain, just like the background or scenery classification is intended to be off chain right now. We do have some flexibility within the accessories contract that if these categories become very useful and become useful to have on chain, we could designate some of the flags, moderation flags that we still have remaining on the accessories contract to move these on chain. But for right now, because most of what these projects are needing them for are Web 2 ish implementations, we're going to keep them off chain so that we can continue to iterate on them.
Right. On to the Jumpport. And for those who are a little newer, the Jumpport contract is live. MoonCats are being deposited. The smart contract source code is verified for those who want to do a deeper dive. Those links are pinned in the Grabball and Lootprints channel. We are continuing to communicate with partners regarding integration of Jumpport, and we are very excited to confirm Liquid Lands now supports staked Mooncats and Starcade Fighters. That's happy. Um, but I do kind of want to remind people that this will be sort of a situation where it will be 100%, where we will have no particular updates until everything is working, and then we will announce that, hey, another integration is working. We appreciate everybody's patience while we work through the details with each of these projects. Um, and of course, the L2 contract testing is now completed. Thank you, everybody who tested. I saw your tweets. I saw people mention things in the Discord. Some people directly DM'd me. Thank you, everybody who worked on it. We do truly appreciate the time that you put into that. There's also a new UI element in the Jumpport with drawing indicator. Do you want to talk about that, Midnight?
Sure. Um, so on the idea that there is, with baked within the jump port, there is an emergency withdraw option that is intended to resolve the issues of if someone lost access and or there was something catastrophic that happened with an L2 or the smart contract ecosystem that could be utilized. And some of the concerns that have been raised about it were to how to know if that has been triggered for one of your Mooncats. At the moment, there is a level of trust to know, that we as a team have said we would announce that broadly. But now we're creating additional tools to make it easier for you to be able to tell on your own as well. So the first of these is it is live on the Jumpport site now, but it's one where you should not see it because right now there are none that have a forced admin withdraw triggered. This is one that now, if your Mooncat in the Jumpport has been, if a forced withdrawal has been initiated and the countdown clock of a year has started to request you to indicate, hey, do you actually want to keep this in here? That would now show up as a UI indicator on the Jumpport. That's live at the moment, but obviously we have not triggered that for any. That's something where we can show or demonstrate that in a test environment at some point in the future. We'll figure out more ways to show how that is indeed there. It is not a perfect solution for a trustless tool to tell that your Mooncat has the action triggered or not, but it is hopefully a step in the right direction. This will be part of the open sourced web UI as soon as that part of the website is ready to be open sourced. So that will be another step towards the direction of showing it is indeed there present in the source code. And we plan to continue to build different tools like that to be able to more readily show, here's ways that you can tell on your own and verify on your own if this has been initiated or not. If we were going against our word of actually started a withdraw and did not say so.
So I think we will plan to do sort of either a screenshot style walkthrough or maybe a video in the near future where we show people what it looks like if their Mooncat is being withdrawn. So look forward to that. And of course, last but not least, I did want to touch upon Grabball. So with the Jumpport in place and L2 contract sealing happening this week, we can now turn Midnight's exceptionally wrinkly brained coding prowess to Grabball. So, for those who are unfamiliar with it, Grabball is a playful game for Mooncats where they can jump into sort of a virtual AR style game play and use their loot prints and their Mooncat pop to simulate a sports game. The initial gameplay smart contracts have been internally verified. They are not yet published. Soon, soon, very,
Hmm.
very soon.
Yep, that fits into the category of, as we mentioned, of like there's a lot of things built while the Ponderware team had lots of people and lots of developer eyes on things, which has been great. And the contracts at this point have been built with the idea of that they were flexible enough to not know where they were going to be deployed, if they were going to be on an L2, if they were going to be within the metadata system, that we weren't quite sure if the on-chain mooncats uh, properties would be all set or not. And so now that things are in place where the Jumpport does exist and the metadata contracts are existing on L2s, now those contracts can be slotted in of knowing that this is where they will be. And also then now the web UI is going to be the key thing to create an actual playing experience.
So, for those of you who are a little newer, remember that for beta testing Grabball, we will be opting in MoonCats that have both a loot print and a MoonCat pop in their purse. And if you've deposited your MoonCat already, don't fret. You can still send purse items to MoonCats inside of the Jumpport. And as always, if you know an alternative project that would be interested in using the Jumpport as their staking solution of source, please feel free to reach out to Midnight or myself. That is everything that I had to share today. This graphic makes me so happy. Is there general questions about the future of MoonCat Rescue or anything that we talked about today that we can answer while you all have us on the horn? All right. I hear people closing down the presentation, so I will take that as a no further questions at this time. But we always have that MoonCats Monday channel open so that people can ask us questions in general. We will have more future presentations like this, although they will not be every 2 weeks. They will be a little more spaced out. Um, if this time isn't super special, awesome for you, if you would like to suggest an alternative time, also feel free to drop that into the MoonCat Monday channel. And thank you everybody for coming. We will see you at the next MoonCat Monday presentation.
Thank you.